Welcome to EveryNews. Today we take you deep into the story of why the Russia-Ukraine war started. We'll explain the history, what led to the invasion in 2022, and what both sides say about it. If you want to truly understand this conflict, stay with us until the end. First, we need to go back to history. For centuries, Ukraine was ruled by different empires, Russian, Austrian, and others, but Ukrainians kept their language and culture. In 1922, after the Russian Civil War, Ukraine became part of the Soviet Union. Many Ukrainians resisted Soviet rule, especially when the Soviets caused the Holodomor famine in the 1930s, killing millions. Fast forward to 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and Ukraine declared independence. This was a huge blow to Moscow because Ukraine is large, rich in resources, and strategically important, while many others wanted to join Europe and NATO. Since then, Ukraine has been caught between Russia and the West. Some Ukrainians wanted closer ties with Russia. In 2013, Ukraine's President Yanukovych rejected a trade deal with the European Union and chose to stay closer to Russia. This led to massive protests called the Euromaidan Revolution. The protests turned violent, and in 2014, Yanukovych fled to Russia. Even before the full-scale invasion, Russian troops moved into Crimea, a Ukrainian peninsula with a Russian-speaking majority, and annexed it after a controversial referendum. Ukraine then formed a pro-European government, but Russia saw this as a threat, adding countries that were once Soviet allies like Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states just weeks later, and even talked about joining someday, starting a bloody war between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed rebels. At the same time, pro-Russian fighters in eastern Ukraine's Donbas region declared independence. That war killed over 14,000 people by 2021. Why does Russia care so much about Ukraine? One word: NATO. Russian forces moved in from the north, east, and south, aiming to capture the capital and replace Ukraine's government. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a military alliance of the US, Canada, and European countries, and prevent NATO from taking over. Since the 1990s, NATO has expanded eastward. Russia saw this as a threat to its security. Ukraine was not a NATO member, but it started cooperating with NATO. For Russian President Vladimir Putin, this was unacceptable. He called Ukraine in NATO a red line. Throughout late 2021, Russia built up over 150,000 troops on Ukraine's borders. Western intelligence warned of an invasion, but many hoped it was just a bluff. On February 21, 2022, Russia officially recognized the separatist republics in Donbas. Then, just 3 days later, on February 24th, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Missiles hit Kyiv, Kharkiv, and other cities. Russia claims it invaded to protect Russian speakers, stop Nazis in Ukraine, and most of the world say these are false excuses and that Russia simply wants to control Ukraine and rebuild its empire. For Ukraine, the war is about freedom and survival. For Russia, it's about power and security. More than 2 years later, the war continues. Russia controls parts of eastern and southern Ukraine, but Kyiv remains independent. This is why the Russia-Ukraine war started a long history of tension, a fight over identity, and a clash between Russia and the West. Thanks for watching EveryNews. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories explained simply. See you in the next video.